Joe Frigolette.
No. 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 Isn't that word just so negative? I can see it on your faces. The whole mood just shifted in the room. And one day it occurred to me, why do I let no get me down all the time? And instead of letting no put me down, I decided that I was just going to stand up, and anybody that told me no, I said, okay, go ahead, tell me no. And with this little shift of a mentality, no turned into my motivator. So now, and ever since that day, anytime anybody tells me no, and they doubt my ability to do something, I have to do it, plain and simple. Now, I say that with the caveat that if they doubt something that I don't want to do, I'm not going to do that, right? If they doubt something that I want to do, I'll do that. Prime example. So when I was a kid, like Matt said, most Italian sons stay with their mother for a long time. I was no different. I went everywhere with my mom. If I wasn't by her side, it was like I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So this particular night, I was in kindergarten. My parents go out for a nice evening, and they leave my sisters in charge of babysitting me for the night. Now, this was set up for disaster right from the beginning. Right? So my mom's gone. I have no idea what to do. And being the youngest of 4 kids, I got tormented a lot. And on this particular night, early on, my oldest sister, Jennifer, thought it'd be funny if she hid my absolute favorite teddy bear in the freezer. Yeah. If you look at this face, you don't mess with that kid's teddy bear. Okay. Now, to make things worse, my other sister, Marie, later on in the night, she tried to stuff me into the dryer. And I don't know why. For some reason, she pushed me. She's like, I don't think you can fit in there. Go ahead. She was so committed. She climbed into the dryer herself halfway. She's like, you can do it. It's okay. And I looked at her. I was like, why do you want me to get into the dryer? What am I going to gain out of doing that? So I looked at her like she was crazy. And I shook my head. I was like, and then I ran away. And my parents always told me that if there's ever an emergency, to call 911. So my 6-year-old brain gathers that what's going on is an emergency. I can't find my mother. Barry almost froze to death. My sister's trying to tumble me around in the dryer like a pair of old jeans. I was freaking out. So I sneak up into my sister's room, and I find the phone, and I dial 911. And it's ringing. They pick up the phone, and I got so nervous I just hung up. Now, apparently, if you call 911 and you hang up, that doesn't prevent the police from showing up at your house. So within a few minutes, sure enough, the cops come home. My parents are getting a phone call. They rush home. Everybody's confused. They don't know what's going on. And on that night, I learned 2 important lessons. The first is that if I ever really miss my parents, just call 911, and they'll come home pretty quick. And then the second lesson is that sometimes if somebody challenges you to do something, you just have to walk away. Or you accept the challenge, and then you're tumbling around in a dryer. But hopefully that doesn't happen. So these times in our lives when somebody tells us no and doubts our ability to do something, and we use that as a driving motivator to accomplish our goals, I like to think of that as a no story. And I believe that everybody has their own no story that has a huge impact on their life. And one day I'm chatting with this older gentleman, and I ask him about his no story. And he tells me, he says, well, Joe, back in the day, I was working as a janitor in this hospital in Syracuse, and there was always this beautiful nurse that I had a fancy for, but I never had the courage to go talk to her. But one day, I'm sitting on a break with a couple of my janitor buddies, and one of them says, hey, I bet you $5 you can't take her out on a date. And then another one says, oh, there's no way you'd be able to take her out on a date. She's way out of your league. And he says, Joe, I have no idea what I said to her that day, but it must have worked because I went up and talked to her, and now we've been married for 46 years. I couldn't get rid of her if I tried to. He says, come to think of it, though, I never got that $5. So I want you guys to imagine a point in your life when somebody told you that you weren't able to do something that you wanted to do. when somebody said that you weren't ever going to do it or that it wasn't possible. Maybe it happened in the workplace, or somebody denied you when you asked them out on a date, or maybe you even convinced yourself that something wasn't possible. How did that doubt and that skepticism make you feel? Was it discouraged or sad, or did it make you enraged and angry at them? And why was that situation so much different from the time that you were in elementary school and somebody bet you their pudding cup that you couldn't fit your whole fist in your mouth? Yeah, you've been there. So if we were all just to use that doubt and that skepticism and then convert that into fuel to accomplish our dreams, think about how much better off we would all be. So now I want you guys to imagine being told that your newborn baby had no chance of ever living a normal life and that there's no way that they would ever walk. Well, on February 24th, 1992, after being carried around by my mother for just 29 weeks, I was born a whopping 2 pounds, 12 ounces. Now, typically, a pregnancy lasts for about 40 weeks, and the babies come out somewhere closer to 7 or 8 pounds. And when a baby is born that early and that small, a lot of the times there's a list of developmental problems that can come as a result. Sometimes they happen right away. Sometimes they're later on down the road, and I was no different. Usually you get to take a baby home after a couple days. Well, I had to sit in an incubator for a couple weeks, hooked up to a breathing machine, just holding on for my life. And at the same time, my mother's a couple of floors away in the same hospital, deep in a coma, holding on for her own life. Our family had no idea if either of us were ever going to make it home. But they came to the hospital day after day, patiently waiting for that time to take us home, and it came, thankfully. But that wasn't the end of my problems. When I was about 9 months old, my mother took me to a developmental specialist to get an idea of what to expect in my life and how I was going to develop. And after taking some time and looking at me and analyzing me, the doctor says, well, Anne, Mrs. Frigolette, after looking at Joseph for some time here and doing some tests, and compared to what I've seen in other cases, there's just no chance that your son's ever going to live a normal life. Honestly, you'll be lucky if he can even ever walk. Now, there's 3 things that you never say to an Italian mother. You never tell her that you're not hungry, because that doesn't really matter. She's going to shove food in your face anyways. You never tell her she's wrong, by all means. And the worst thing that you could ever say to an Italian mother is something bad about her baby boy. So my mom did what any hard-headed Italian woman would have done back in those days. She gets on the phone, calls a couple of wise guys from the family, tells them that she's got a problem they got to take care of. The very next day, they come down, find this doc outside his office. One thing leads to another, bada bing, bada boom, no more problem. A couple days after that, we packed up our stuff. We moved from Ohio to New York. We never talked about it again. You guys are sick. If that really happened, you think I would tell you all about it on camera? Come on. But no, realistically, my mother, without any hesitation, walked right up to the doc, punched him square in the face. So to think that this little baby boy was never going to be able to walk, she says, how dare you say that about my son? Who the hell do you even think that you are? That you can look at him for an hour and a half and just tell me that his whole life is fate, that he's never going to be able to walk or fully develop. Needless to say, after that day, my mother was never allowed back in that doctor's office again, and rightfully so. Now, that wasn't the end of it, though. So over the course of the next few years, I went through every type of therapy that you can imagine. Other things that normal kids just got one day, I had to be taught how to do. I mean, they had to physically move my little legs to teach me how to walk. Now, with all the therapy and the progress, I did make some good progress, but I would still hardly call myself normal. This is still my preferred sleeping position to this day. Now it just changed from my sister's legs to my girlfriend's legs, but I still like to sleep the same way. Now, even though my mom was never allowed in the doctor's office again, that didn't stop her from talking to this doctor and communicating with him. over the course of the past 23 years, my mother sent him copies of every single report card I got, pictures of me playing sports. She even sent him a picture of me at my college graduation, 23 years later, or 22 years later for that matter. And my mother actually drove over 8 hours to be with us here today. So before I wrap up, I would actually like to bring her up on stage with me. As she's shaking her head and crying.
That's a shitty joke.
No, you're staying here. Come here. I told you, she's got some sass to her. So on that day in the doctor's office, she was faced with a choice. She could either accept the fact that my fate was sealed and that I would never walk, and you know what? There's a good chance I probably wouldn't.
Probably not.
Or she could use that doubt that that doctor had to light a fire inside of her to get all the help that we needed and make a difference and defy the odds. And I don't think that you knew on that day, Mom, that the decision that you made was going to shape how I operate in this world on a daily basis. And I don't think either of us knew that I'd be sharing it with all these people here today.
No, definitely not.
This is why I keep her. I like this one.
You have no choice.
So, as I wrap up, now that you guys have all heard my no story, I challenge you. The next time somebody tells you no and doubts your ability and your capability to do something, how are you going to react? Because it's those people that stand up and say, go ahead, tell me no. No matter what those other people say, who are able to do the things that other people don't think that they're able to do. Thank you.